As your customers make progress through their plans, a progress bar appears for them to let them know exactly where they are in that entire process. Since that plan is associated with a deal or ticket in HubSpot, using pipelines is a fantastic way for you to also see where the customer is in the progress, and this gives the rest of your organization a chance to also get that visibility. Using HubSpot workflows can help you automate moving these deal or ticket cards through the different pipeline stages as customers are making progress in the phases on their plan. That way, this whole process is automated and everyone is aware of where the customer is in that actual process. To set up this workflow, you'll head to the Automations tab inside of HubSpot and select Workflows, and then you're going to create a workflow from scratch. In this case, I'm going to use a deal-based workflow because I'm using the deal object in my example where the plans are attached to. You'll use deals or tickets depending on which object you're using that associates with your onboarding plans. I'm going to hit next here. First and foremost, you want to give the workflow a name so that you can reference it easily later. I'm going to go with update deal stages based on plan progress. Now, what I want to do is have the deal stages updated based on the current active phase that a customer is in on their plan. So every phase has a phase name that you assign to it. And I've synced that value into a property in HubSpot by setting up a custom property in HubSpot for Arrow's phase name and then syncing that data connection from the Arrow side into that property. Once that is set up, I can set up the trigger and search for a deal filter for that phase name. So I'm going to say Arrow's current phase, and I'm just going to go with is known for this example because I want this to be triggered when that phase name is known. Make sure to apply filters every time you are setting up a workflow, and then hit save to go to the next step. Now you can add additional layers in here like specific pipelines, specific segments, or any other filtering to make sure that this is specific to that onboarding pipeline, but I'm going to go with just the phase name in this example. Because I have multiple different phases, I'm going to start with my first action as an if-then branch. You want to give every branch a name because each branch segment will also have an action in a second. So I'm going to name my first branch before we get started because that's the first phase inside of my plan. And then I'm going to filter down to deal again and search that phase name. The name for the branch is more for organization purposes. The actual phase name you put in here is what's going to be that trigger that ultimately updates the deal stage. So in here, I'm going to say contains any of, and I'm going to do before we get started. And hit enter, and again, apply that filter. And then I'm going to add another branch to get the rest of my phases all listed out in here. Once you've added all of your branches, go ahead and hit save, and you'll see that if branch populate. Now what we want to do is add an action when that if-then branch is met. In this case, what we're saying is when the current phase name contains before we get started, do an action accordingly. So I'm going to add an action here, and what I'm going to do is search for the set property task action. And I'm going to update a deal object, and I'm going to choose the property for the stage name, and then pick the stage name accordingly. This will be all of your pre-built stage names that are in your pipeline. So I'm going to pick before we get started, and then hit save. Now you want to do the same for the rest of these branches. And one thing to note is that the stage name doesn't necessarily have to match exactly to what the phase name is in Arrows because of this if-then logic. All you're saying is when the phase name equals X, update the deal stage to be Y. So for this example, what I'm saying is when a customer is in the getting started phase, what I actually want to do is update them to the kickoff scheduled stage inside of HubSpot. Because of the flexibility of HubSpot workflows, you can also have a single stage represent multiple phases on your plan. For example, when a customer is doing their Arrows template setup or their HubSpot configuration on their plan, in our internal systems, they are still in account setup as far as the stage name is concerned. So here I've zoomed out a little bit to let you see the entire workflow now that it's all set up. Every time one of these phase names matches the workflow, it'll update the deal stage accordingly to what I've set down here. You may also want to go back into the enrollment trigger and turn on re-enrollment just in case if a customer unmarks a phase as complete. complete and goes backwards in their plan, that will also be reflected accordingly. Once you have this initial workflow set up, you can add additional actions to any of these branches, or if you edit your phase names in your templates, you can also update those phase names in this if-then logic. Now, to actually turn on the workflow, you'll want to hit the Review and Publish button. HubSpot will tell you how many deals or tickets meet that current criteria, and it'll ask you if you want to enroll them before turning on the final workflow. In this case, I'm going to set this to no because I only want this turned on for deals going forward. And then once I hit turn on, that will start automatically moving my deals or tickets through those pipeline stages based on where those customers are in their actual onboarding plans.